Okay, well here's some brief information about how to mark out a rebate joint. So we're going to mark out a rebate joint on a bit of wood like this, and these are the tools that we need: a metal rule, a tri-square, a marking gauge, a sharp pencil, and it's important to have a pencil with a sharp point, and of course we need our piece of wood that we're going to mark out the rebate on. So first steps first, it will be to measure a distance of the thickness of the wood that we want to sit in there down from the edge. Now you can do that by measuring with a rule at 12 millimeters like that, making a small mark there, or you can actually use the wood as a guide like this, and create, you're holding my fingers at one end like that, right on the edge, and at the other end making a small mark. Once I've made my mark like that, just a small mark, I can use a tri-square, measure the ruler line across like so. Now it's important when you use a tri-square, push the butt of the tri-square against the side of your wood like that. Once that's completed, we need to move this around. Now you would have a face side and face edge mark like that. Use your tri-square again to transfer that line very carefully around on either side. Again, butt of the tri-square on your face edge like this, so the mark is nice and evenly spaced all the way around, and that is 12 millimeters, which again is the thickness of a bit of wood like that. Next thing to do is to use this called a marking gauge. Now the marking gauge that you can see over here has a few distinct parts. There's the shaft, the block, a pin and a locking screw. And in order to use it correctly, the locking screw will allow the block to move backwards and forwards like this, and the pin, the distance between the pin and the block is the distance that we're going to use to be able to get a parallel edge or a parallel surface. Now what we want to do is get this pin halfway in between the two edges of our bit of wood. So I'm going to just guess it at this start. So I'm going to use my ruler, measure in about 6 millimeters because the wood is 12 millimeters wide with my thumb. Then I'm going to tighten up the screw just gently and test. And the way I'm going to test is by making a little dent, pushing the marking gauge in, turning the wood around like this, and putting a dent in from the other side. And if the dent's exactly in the same spot, in the same hole, which it almost is, then I know I've got the centre. If it's not quite in the same hole, then I can adjust it pretty simply by just tapping it either on one end or the other end of the shaft to move the block backwards and forwards till it's where I want it. So I'm happy with that. I'm going to tighten up the locking screw, and now I'm going to use this. Now, the best place to use it is going to be to place it right in front of in a vise over here. Like that. You place it inside the vise, have it sitting up like this. There it is. Now, I'm going to use the marking gauge to be able to create this pin to give me a parallel surface on both sides of the edge and the end of the wood, so I can mark out the shoulder. Alright, now to do this, I'm going to use 2 fingers on the marking gauge, and the idea is that you keep the pin pointing away from the direction of your motion. So if we're going to do or use the marking gauge to mark down here, I would keep the pin pointing away, and I'm going to draw the marking gauge with 2 hands holding the wood block firmly towards me. I'm going to draw the marking gauge across and create a little line like that, pushing the wood block firmly. A couple of light goes and the line is in place. Now once that's done, I can put my pencil in the groove and trace that line out, and that line's now set there for me. I'm going to do the same thing on this side here, down the edge, and create an edge surface. You can see there, I'll do it with one hand, but you can get a closer look like this. Yeah. And draw the marking gauge down. See, it creates that little groove. Then I'll use my pencil inside the line there, and I've got that centre line. Now, same thing here at the other side, like that. Wait till we get focus. Now remember the point is pointing away from the direction of my motion, like that. And then using a pencil, inside the groove, I've got my line. And there is the line created around the sides of the shoulder for the rebate. Now to finish that off, I'm going to do some cross-hatching lines so I know which end is the end that's waste. That's important because when I come to cutting, I want to be able to cut off the waste end, not the wrong end. It's very heartbreaking if you cut the wrong end. So make sure you clearly indicate which ends are the waste ends. Like that. So there's my rebate now completely marked out.